Have you ever broken up with someone and regretted it later? If so, why? Story 1. Yeah, she was my first girlfriend, dated her for 6 years. Nothing wrong in the relationship, but I assumed something was wrong because she was my first. I didn't know what other relationships were like for comparison, so when I started dating other girls I realized I screwed up. Story 2. Broke up with my girlfriend because she didn't really fit into my idea of who I wanted to be with. About 2 weeks later it suddenly hit me. She was a kind person who genuinely liked and accepted me. WTF was I doing? Asked her to reconsider and she said no. We remained friends and a few weeks later I asked her to reconsider again. She said no because she didn't know if I was just lonely or wanted to be with her. Told me to wait a few months and then decide if I wanted to ask her again. We've been married for close to 10 years and I've never been happier. Story 3. Broke up with a girl because she was about to head back to a fancy college and I assumed she'd quickly break up with me after a few weeks there. I was determined to not be the one getting dumped, so I did it first. Turns out she was devastated and was planning on making a long-distance thing work. I felt terrible, but I couldn't just take it back, so I decided to give her some space. Half a year later, at Christmas break, we started talking again and quickly got back together. I went back to school myself and we've been married 13 years. Story 4. My first girlfriend. I wouldn't say I regret it because I am who I am today because of the decisions I made. It took me a lifetime of bad and sometimes abusive relationships to realize that actually everything I could have wanted and needed was in her. She was truly a good soul and in my naivety I thought there would be many others like her. But life doesn't work that way. Last I heard she had a husband and a kid. Couldn't be happier for her. Story 5. Because I was in a bad place and I felt like I didn't deserve being with someone good, I went with people that fit my idea of myself, i.e. shitty. This was generally regarded by everyone involved as a bad move. Do not recommend. Date above your perceived station in life, not only because you deserve it, because it will make you a better person. Story 6. I don't regret breaking up with anyone, but I do regret not giving some people a chance. In my life I've had some genuinely awesome women that were interested in me and I let them slip away for toxic and horrible relationships. I could have been part of a team where we elevated one another and together became better than we could have alone. Instead I just couldn't stop myself from settling down into toxic and hateful relationships. I wasted my youth and can never get it back. Story 7. Yes, but not because of the woman I was leaving. We were together for 3 years and we ran our course. That was fine and it wasn't that hard to break up. But she had a dog, a tiny little Jack Russell Terrier who was already 12 years old when I first met her. That dog was my spirit animal and we just bonded instantly. She followed me around everywhere and I loved that dog bits. She was a tough nut but she was really frozen due to age, so I bought her clothes so she could be both warm and at the same time. It doesn't show in that picture but she was really confident in these clothes. When we broke up it sucked because I had to leave this sweetheart behind. She wasn't mine. And then 4 months later she passed away. The last thing I did was slam the door behind me and I have so much regret in my heart that I didn't take a moment to say goodbye to this dog, or stayed for another 4 months before breaking up so I could have been there for her at the end. It sucks. Story 8. I dated a woman few months after a breakup from a previous relationship that lasted a few years, maybe 6 months, and I realized I wasn't able to give her my heart because I was still hung up on my ex. I explained this to her and she told me she was willing to work through it with me. Unfortunately I had become pretty depressed, thinking I was a failure for not being able to really love this woman who was perfect for me. I even made one of those pro-con lists to help me decide what to do and there was nothing in the con side. We had everything in common, enjoyed the same movies, had many of the same friends, had similar goals in life, etc. We had become very close friends and that's where the barrier seemed to be for me. My heart wasn't free to go further. I broke up with her and regretted it every day, wishing I could be over my ex. Maybe 6 months later I was in a place where I thought I was ready to try being in a relationship again. This woman had moved on and seemed really happy with the guy she was dating, so I let the idea of us being together fade. After her, I dated a woman who would break up with me when she went back for her final semester of college because she felt she was gay. I never had any idea. I was disappointed because she was a really sweet woman but there were no hard feelings between us. She needed to be honest with who she was and we stayed good friends for a couple years until she moved out of state. After her there was a terrible relationship where I was cheated on for a couple years. And then I met my wife. We've been married for 20 years and I've never looked back and wished things had worked out differently. All my bad decisions and pain led me to her, and this is where I want to be. Story 9. Yes, we were together 4 years. She was the first person I wasn't related to that said that they loved me. I was hooked. I was unhappy for a majority of the relationship. I was cheated on. She made me hate myself. I missed the routine of it. I miss going to our places. I miss the inside jokes. I miss the friend she was. The friend that attaches to the end of the word girlfriend. I am thankful that when she came crawling back 2 years later, married and lonely for me, I was strong enough to say no. Story 10. I dated a single mom in 2012 to 13, gorgeous, smart, funny, affectionate, liked everything I did including football and metal, got me an engraved flask for my birthday with an inside joke written on it, broke things off because an ex had come back into my life, huge mistake. Not only did things not work out with the ex but I burned the bridge with the other woman, she blocked me on FB and IG, I still have the flask and it pains me to look at it. Story 11. Shortly after the most crushing breakup I had, I found a girl a few years younger than me with 2 kids just looking for an adult friend. I was clear about not looking for a relationship and we started hooking up. A couple months and I really liked this girl and asked her to make it official. She agreed and I was super into her, but awkward with the kids. She never pushed me to be more involved with them too fast, and the kids and I met slowly and then more and more. We actually broke up a few times. I would end it because it got too scary with the kids, and then we would get together, and then she would end it because it was feeling too serious. On and off for about 2 years until I got offered a massive promotion 12 hours away and took it. We split up for real, which lasted about 8 months. Then by fluke I ran into her while visiting my parents and we rekindled. I didn't even realize how much I had missed her until then. We've been doing long distance for about 9 months now and am looking for a job back in town. I've proposed, she accepted, and she's constantly sending me links to dream homes we should look at. The kids and I love each other, and when she works I've been taking the kids to school and picking them up and they both call me dad. I think the biggest thing that kept breaking us up is that we both went into it refusing to want a real relationship and directly looking to not fall in love, and let our stubbornness and egos, which we both have plenty of, refuse to let us re-evaluate or be the first to tell the other we were wrong. Story 12. Yes and no. I was in a 4-year relationship with someone I always considered to be not the one. Turns out it was all fear of commitment. I left the relationship because from the get-go, I thought it would be over soon. It was a great relationship. She accepted me in the most part. We had some personality shocks, but I came to accept that I loved her and that I would marry her eventually. Problem is, that feeling of you're losing lots of opportunities never went away and the personality shocks pilled on it. Eventually my fear of commitment got to me and I broke up with her in 2019. Since then, I learned about that fear, regretted the breakup, talked deeply with her about that, and learned that I was not wrong in breaking up with her. The relationship was making me miserable, and having a toll on her too, and it wouldn't get better unless I learned what I learned this last year, and that would probably not be enough. It was the right decision, but for the wrong reasons. I don't regret it anymore. My 2020 would be way less lonely if I hadn't broken up with her, but I learned a lot about myself and still have a friend in her. We're not as close as we once were, but sometimes that happens. My point is, you might miss the relationship later, even if it makes you feel bad now. That's okay. Just remember that breaking up is as much a commitment as staying together. Story 13. Yes, my most recent partner was pretty amazing, and he was the only person I've ever met who was actually willing to fight for me, and not turn away at the first sign of minor inconvenience, and I rejected and dismissed him repeatedly, because I was too hung up on stupid things that didn't really matter. I could have had the family I desperately need, had I not been a complete and utter idiot. Story 14. I broke up with a boyfriend because I was obsessed with finding myself and had no real sense of who I was, and I felt like I couldn't discover that while with him. I didn't feel right breaking up with him, but at the time I didn't know myself well enough to really understand what I wanted. So it was both instant regret and regret later, like years later, when I finally settled into who I was as a person and realized he was the only person who ever accepted me no matter what. Long story short, we are coming up on 2 years together, and I think I'm going to propose. Story 15. My college girlfriend. She was my soulmate. She understood me, always had my back, and put up with my BS, but being young and stupid I thought I needed to sow some wild oats before I settled down. So off I went to sow, and when I was finished, she had already settled down with another guy. Story 16. I broke up with the love of my life because I thought she was too good for me. She didn't think that and tried very hard to convince me. I was just scared she was absolutely correct, but I wouldn't listen and I pushed her away. It is hands down the worst mistake I ever made in my life. Kids, learn from my disastrous mistakes. And get off my lawn. Story 17. My most recent ex was a really good person underneath what I considered to be an alcoholic, mean girl who didn't like me all the time. I got into my current relationship right as that one ended, because I realized this new one, current fiancé, actually liked at first, now genuinely loves me, but I regret the breakup in a way. She had a 2-year-old kid and I loved him a lot during the year we dated. The boy's father was a deadbeat and cheated on my ex while she was pregnant and then left her for the chia tea. I regret leaving so hastily because from her perspective, I too left her for someone else, I guess, not just her perspective, as that's basically what happened. But I just wasn't happy and my time with her was a drunken mess of constant fighting and anger. I just know she was a good person down deep inside, just deeply flawed due to a lifetime of being failed by those she loved, and I just added to that and failed her one last time. Story 18. I regretted it even as I was doing it, but I knew it was the right thing to do. He was my first serious. But we were very young, there was a lot of love, but we'd developed some unhealthy communication and were hurting each other. Neither of us really knew how to fix it or whether it even could be fixed. I hated hurting him and walking away was painful, but it was necessary. The way things were, that relationship was not going anywhere good. All in all, I regret the pain I caused, but am still certain that it was the right thing to do. Story 19. Yep, I broke up with my first girlfriend and regretted it. We were both still virgins, but I didn't want to be, while she was a devout Catholic who wanted to save herself for marriage. I respected that, but 17-year-old me felt unhappy, feeling like I was never going to get to experience, though I still happily dated her because she was my first and I was happy enough to be able to tell my friends that I had a girlfriend. I broke up with her, but after going through that experience and feeling how terrible it was for both of us, first heartbreak and all that, I turned around and won her back. I did it for the wrong reasons. I felt guilty for hurting her, and felt in retrospect like breaking up over was a shallow thing to do. Thing is, the spark was gone after that, so she broke up with me soon after anyway. It was for the best. We were incompatible in other ways that became apparent later, but hearing her say I don't love you anymore was perhaps the most savage emotional gut punch of my young life. And that was how I learned that it matters, and incompatibility can ruin relationships and be sometimes, a relationship can be broken badly enough that it can't be fixed. Story 20 regretted not getting back together when she offered. We broke up on a camping trip July 5th some years ago because she was having a hard time with the long distance. She said she'd still like to be my one to my mother's wedding in mid-August, and I still wanted her there, so that was the next time I saw her. On that trip she said she had had the space she wanted to think and she wanted to get back together. I was still too hurt from the breakup to accept at the time, telling myself that if it didn't work once it would never work. I guess that gave her the closure to move on, and we grew apart after that. By the time I got over myself and my hurt feelings, it was already too late. She's still the only person I've ever been in love with. Story 21 Yes, I broke up with my ex about 2 years ago because I was going through depression. I needed time to recollect and reflect, and I just lost the feeling of being happy, and I lost feelings for any relationship I had, whether family, intimate, or friendly. I regret it now because she was the best girl I've ever dated, but now there's no chance of going back with her. She could have got me through those times, but I just didn't know that. I upped big time. Story 22 was dating a girl long distance. Decided long distance wasn't going to work for me. Called it off and started dating a girl locally who was like talking to a brick wall. All of a sudden long distance didn't seem so bad. We're married now. Story 23 Yes, our relationship kind of fell apart because she struggled to trust me since I was working with females mainly in healthcare industry, and she had bad experience from the past with her ex-partner who cheated on her. I couldn't be with somebody who want to control who I am working or being friends with, and she didn't want to be with somebody who she don't feel secure enough with all that thing about the trust. In general, apart from that, we had great relationship, and I regretted later on as she is the only woman I know I can think of as ideal partner for me despite all the flaws. Tried to get back to her, but she don't want to be with me despite seeing she still feels something towards me. It's terrible feeling. I kind of accepted it, but it still hurts and I'm often thinking about her. Guess if she would come to and say she want to get back I would say yes despite it was already half a year. Story 24 No, when I brought up the suggestion of breaking up I did it for their sake. They'd gone off to university and the long distance was too stressful on them on top of their own mental health problems plus the stress of university. Sure, when they agreed that we should, it hurt, and I was very seriously depressed for almost 2 years due to it plus other things that happened very soon after the breakup that aren't related to it, but I did what was right for them, and that's what you do when you love someone. These days I'm doing alright, a little lonely, but that's life, and if I'm meant to find someone else it'll happen someday. Story 25 I don't regret leaving the relationship, as it needed to be done. He felt more love for me than I did for him, and that wasn't fair to him. I loved him as a friend, but it took months to realize that, but I do regret breaking his heart. I wish I had lied, not told the truth honestly. Telling him that I just didn't love him is the most painful thing I have ever had to do, and I would give anything to just change that. The look on his face and the emotions I could feel from him ruined me. He will forever be hurt by that and think he did something wrong when he never ever did. He was perfect, I was ill. Story 26 Kind of, I don't regret breaking up with him at the time, but a few years later I wonder, man, if I was this mature back then, that relationship could have been way healthier. Edit for grammar. Story 27 I regretted breaking it off as this woman was the first person I had ever truly loved. At the time that I ended the relationship I had actually been shopping for rings with the intention of proposing, but I found out that same week that she had cheated on me. She was brave enough to tell me that she did and I tried hard to forgive her, but the trust was gone. I found out years later that shortly after I broke it off she ended up getting hooked on drugs and getting pregnant from a one-night stand. She has put her life back together, but I can't help but think that it was my fault and I could have helped keep her out of that dark place if I just could have forgiven her. Story 28 Dear OP, I don't know if you would read this. I sincerely want to thank you for posting this question. I don't know why I am even thanking you. I am in my early 20s, not even in a relationship. Certain answers were joyous, sad, and even heartbreaking. My parents are married for 30 years. I have first-hand seen love and its effect on kids, me and my siblings. I would tell you never settle for less. You deserve love. Story 29 had a crush on this girl for 2 years who was affectionate but never displayed any serious attachment. Then I started seeing someone else after I got tired, and she was amazing, kind, smart, but about 2 weeks in, the long-lasting crush feelings were still there, so I ended the relationship because it felt somewhat unfair towards the girl I was seeing. I ended up eventually with this crush. I very quickly realized she was the most abusive, toxic person I've ever met in my life. I have never with anyone been yelled at so much, fought so much, blamed for the smallest things. She once stopped talking to me for 2 days because I accidentally got off the bus one stop too early when taking her to see a movie. We had to walk 10 extra minutes. It was over 5 years. I still regret breaking up with this girl who was one of the nicest people I've ever met for this abusive crush. Story 30 I had a certain amount of paranoia regarding relationships in general. My parents had suddenly divorced recently, among other things, and I was really confused about what could lead to that. My relationship at the time had some issues, none really that major, but we ended up breaking up. Later I realized how much she genuinely made me happy, and worked hard to do so, She honestly was a good and kind person. I gave her a call but Shed moved on, definitely my loss. Don't aim for perfection, aim for happiness and sustainability. While there can be red flags in a relationship, it's also easy to overinflate small things or worries into imagined future disasters. I'm married with kids now, but sometimes I do wonder how she's doing and hope that she's found somebody who really appreciates her. Story 31 had a good girlfriend when I was younger, genuine love, but me being the I was back then pushed her away, but you live and learn and onwards and upwards. Story 32 6th grade, I was dating one of the cutest girls in my grade, got the big ego about it, and one day the most popular girl in the grade was being silly and flirty with me, so I decided she must want me also, time to upgrade, so I made a big to-do of deciding I was going to break up with my girlfriend. Popular girl the next day in class asked me why I broke up with my girlfriend and said I shouldn't have done that. Popular girl it turns out had zero interest in me and was just being friendly because she was friends with my girlfriend. Ex-girlfriend then hated me from then on. Story 33 I broke up with my first girlfriend in high school because I didn't know any better. I thought people broke up, dated other people, that is just how high school was. Turns out that was a terrible mistake. Luckily we got back together after I realized I was and we have been married for 16 years now. Story 34 Yeah, I did regret why because we loved each other a bunch. I walked from this relationship. I had my reasons, they were sound, adult, healthy on and on. I was crushed emotionally, and like sometime later in the random places in the world I run into them in the bottom of this building getting out of a car. That was raw and bittersweet and we were going to get back together. But I decided against it, done, it was the right decision both and overall. But emotionally that never will square, intellectually, absolutely, that's how it works at least with me. Story 35 I got back this a woman that cheated on me and ended it because I didn't know how to feel and all the pressure from my mates told me not to stay with someone who cheated, but TBH I regret it a lot. I saw a lot in this girl. It's been 2 years now and I still miss us. Story 36 Yes, ouch 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 I'm going to cry. I broke up with the ex because of quarantine and money problems. I was the breadwinner before COVID and paid for most things. I lost 95% of my income during the lockdowns. She was a teacher and just went to online school. She lost zero. Her entire family was laptop class professionals and all of them lost zero. The disgust they had for my broke drove me crazy. They just insisted I give up on my business and get a corporate laptop job like them. Well, the ex kept demanded I pay for thing with no income. One mean I don't blame her, it's what she was used to. I couldn't. Pressure got to me and I snapped. I failed. I took my and moved in with my mom. Heartbroken and broke. Regretted wasting years of my life on a woman who never actually cared about me, yeah. Story 37 No, I've had a few boyfriends over the years. All very different from each other. Everyone I thought this is it I want to marry them, have kids and get old with them. I suppose I fall in love quite easily. Each one was a horrendous breakup, proper heartbroken, spiral of depression and self-hating. Self-medicated with booze and going crazy partying. When I met my current boyfriend he was so different to the others. He was actually nice. I fell in love with him pretty much instantly. 9 years later and with a 8-month-old baby and I'm so glad I went through all those heartbreaks. Makes me appreciate him a lot more. By the time I met him I knew what I wanted and didn't want in a partner. Story 38 I broke up with my of 3 years because of my depression. I was convinced that I wasn't good enough and was holding him back and that he only stayed with me out of pity. He gave me both the space I needed to sort myself out and the support I needed when it came to listening and talking. 3 months later we were back together and we are now engaged. I realized all the problems I thought we had were my depression, anxiety with me, and went to therapy to work on myself. Story 39 I regret my most recent breakup. Essentially I freaked out because he liked me too much and after a long series of boyfriends and an ex-husband that had made me feel like a burden that should be grateful for their presence. I didn't know how to just enjoy it. Ultimately I sabotaged the relationship rather than let myself fall in his eyes. Which I guess I've done anyway. Story 40 Not really broken up because we weren't dating, but at the time, she was a close friend of mine, used to play video games with each other until late 2015, then we started to distance each other for a bit but still kept in contact. I completely stopped talking to her around early 2017 because I was blindly obsessed with another girl who became toxic to me a year later, and it took me 6 months to recover from that. Last year, with the lockdown and all, I started reminiscing about my old friends that I have left behind and remembered her. Took me a few weeks to consider if I should message her again because of how long since we last talked. Even though we never ended on a sour note, eventually messaged her and asked if she remembers me. She said not really, although she still had my number saved, but was still really friendly and pretty much the same person as I remembered from 2015. We still are in contact now, but we are both busy with our own studies, and I think she may have slowly remembered who I was before, planning to talk to her more and maybe meet up with her for the first time by the end of the year. Story 41 I knowingly dated them while they were in an abusive relationship, and before I knew about the abuse, I told them it wasn't fair for me to have them while someone else loves them, and that the abuser was the better choice. They came back over a month later covered in bruises and told me about everything, from their partner beating them to cheating and making this person watch, and that they didn't feel guilty for coming back to me because I helped them realize that they don't deserve that their ex put them through. So I got them in the end, but I still feel so awful for sending them back to that hellhole even if I didn't know. We're in the process now of getting the abuser to agree to either move out or let them move in with me. Story 42 I used to date this cute girl and was cool and all, but her attitude towards others and my friends I didn't really enjoy. It was plain rude, so instead of talking it over like a growing adult, I was 16 at the time. 17 now, I just ended it. About a year later she has a major glow up and I'm thinking to myself, I could been with that. But then I remembered why it didn't work in the first place. But OFC, since I'm a teen, I'm looking at how she looks versus how she acts. People definitely change though, so who knows. Story 43 Yes, we broke up recently. I should have fought a little harder for our relationship. The pandemic made a lot of relationships complicated, ours included. Even if I tried to win him back, he is already in another relationship and has moved forward. I have not moved on. I do not know how to move forward. I am not making any progress. Story 44 I've always been the dumb P, but I'm fairly sure my first girlfriend has probably been divorced more than once by now. In the meantime, I married my next girlfriend and it will be 32 years married this August. Story 45 Broke up with a guy for legitimate reasons, different places in life, and selfish reasons. I had a crush on and wanted to sleep with someone else. He didn't deserve that treatment, but I feel like I deserved what happened next. Fell hard for that other guy who strung me along for a year and a half and dumped me when someone better came up. My mental health is now shot, big self-esteem issues. Ultimately it wouldn't have worked out with the first guy. Big age difference meant he wanted kids sooner than later, but it was the first good relationship I'd had in a very long time and I didn't even realize how much I needed it. Story 46 Tough question to answer honestly. Immaturity mostly, combined with my own doubts and insecurities. Then life sometimes just gets in the way of your plans when you're young. You sometimes don't understand what you want or need in life. It's for some, not until you've lived a little, laughed, cried, smiled a little, until you kind of understand who you are and what you want. Everybody has the story of the one girl who got away. Question is, did you miss out on an idealistic version of a person you knew, or did you find a person who helps you to be an ideal version of the person you would like to be? Story 47 Nope, I've had second thoughts, but never regretted. She understood and accepted me more wholly than anyone else, hence second thoughts. But ultimately the relationship was doomed to failure. Logistics and different needs were too incompatible, so no regrets. Story 48 Because it was a stupid reason. She was the most beautiful woman inside and out that I ever met, but my immature thought there might be something better. There never was. Story 49 Yeah, because we got back together, and I'm now convinced she spent the next 7 years making my life a living because of it. Guys, don't change your relationship status on Facebook unless you really mean it, especially if it's the year 2010. Story 50 I dated a woman in grad school for a few months but was dealing with depression during the time. I wasn't fully committed in the relationship and it wasn't fair to her. We decided to end things mutually. The very next day I realized I was letting go of something special. I talked to her about what I was mentally going through and asked her to give it another shot. The mental issues got a whole lot better once I was more open about it. We got married a few years later and are very happy in our relationship. Story 51 I woke up one morning when I was 24 and thought I could see myself marrying her. Scared the out of me and I started distancing and broke up eventually. The only thing I truly regret so far in my life. Story 52 The guy before my husband, I was with him for 3 years. I broke up with him because my future husband was showing interest in me at work and we were becoming friends. At home, my ex was stressed over a potential lien on his house, plus learning web development to make more money, so he was always working and we didn't hang out or talk as much. There was 14-year age difference between us and I wanted kids and a family and he had told me he did too, but he didn't want to talk about it with me, so I broke up with him. He was a genuinely nice person who always made me laugh about everything and had a sense of self-confidence in everything he did while being very calm. We never fought because he disliked confrontation, so that might have been a problem, but otherwise my life with him was so easy, no real struggles, and I threw it away over 6 months of him being a little distant and stressed. Now my husband and I bicker about stupid like me using the word never, when he knows I mean most of the time. I feel like you don't help with this. It is also hard because he doesn't believe in depression, but has all of the symptoms, being lazy, unmotivated, never happy or laughs, no interest in doing family activities, and now he has begun wasting almost all of his paychecks on cigarettes, weed, lottery tickets, and coke. I'm 7 months pregnant. I don't know what to do. I'm concerned for his mental well-being, but I know addiction is a personal fight. I'm freaking out because I can't help but to feel bitterness and resentment for his choices and lack of judgment for what I thought was our future. I don't know whether to let him stay here so that he can help out a bit with a newborn and our daughter, or just give him a month until he moves out. I told him he has to seek treatment, or go to therapy or a group meeting, because if not, I don't want him here and am going to request supervised visits with our daughter. I cannot keep enabling him, but my heart is breaking with that decision. I wish things were different. Story 53 Meg, if you're reading this thread, I still love you. I know I was your first serious boyfriend, and I learned something about myself. I made a mistake, not just with you but everyone in my life. When I told you I feel like you freaked out and ran while all I wanted was the opportunity to work through it together. I've been going to therapy and I know I'll have to be on guard about it for the rest of my life regardless of if we're together again, but because it cost me you, it feels like it takes no effort to be vigilant. I meant what I said about you being the only woman I love and how I could honestly give about anyone else in the world when it comes down to it. God, I miss you. Life isn't bad now that you're gone. I guess I'm happy, but I know what could have been and what still can. Story 54 broke it off with a girl because she was an ex of a friend by association. That was dumb. Never talked to the dude anymore because we weren't really that close and she was a wonderful person and chef sigh. Story 55 I regretted breaking up with my last partner, while also recognizing it was for the best we stopped dating. We had no plans to make the future work together, we both had our own going on, and we had both become different people. I regretted it because I missed having a partner and being close with them, but I knew it wouldn't have worked out well in the end if we'd stayed together. We're still friends but not close. I sometimes forget we dated but I wonder sometimes if he still thinks about it.